Grief touches every life and tests every heart. Even when we prepare for grief, it often knocks us to our knees. We are the Time with Giants show. Join us as we connect with giants of the faith who are experiencing the power of God in the midst of chaos. Whether your life is going great or you are in the middle of that chaos, welcome to our show.
So even when my eyes can't see it, and even when my heart can't feel it, my mouth will still repeat it. God, I trust you.
Well, hey, welcome to Time with Giants. We're so thankful that you have joined us today, and I am excited about our show today. We have one of my college roommates that I'm super proud of. He is on with his son, and I think it's super cool, Emily, that I get to be on with my daughter.
It's pretty fun, Dad.
Talking to Jeremie and Will Kubicek. Before we jump in, I just want to thank our one of our sponsors. We are trying to highlight a sponsor every time, and Emily, tell us about our sponsor.
We are so thankful for Fire Blankets USA for sponsoring us. They have created a fire blanket for electric vehicles because electric vehicles, they're new, and so sometimes they can catch on fire, and so these fire blankets can put it out. And so we're hopeful that all vehicles that are electric can end up with one of these blankets in their car. We're thankful for them sponsoring us.
Hey, so it's going to be a great day. I want to jump right into our guests today, Jeremie and Will Kubicek. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And hey, tell us a little bit about you guys and just kind of your story, because you are giants of the faith. Jeremie, I've known you a long time. Tell us about yourselves.
My company's called Giant too, so it's really perfect. It's a great tie-in here. Now, well, first and foremost, I had the privilege of really, how would you say it, Chris? Was I your moderator? Was I your chaperone through college? Maybe.
Jeremie, here's the thing. You're an international leader, and I am convinced that the reason that you became such a great leader is that our roommates were so hard to lead. And so I just think we're going to take credit for that, because we were a bunch of strong-willed guys and we lived together in a small apartment, and you were the one that tried to channel us.
No, I was the one who was responsible for rent. That was it. That was just pressure.
You were responsible for everything. Will, he had this stick that he would say, hey, you can't talk unless you have this stick in your hand. And we would get the stick and throw it across the room.
That didn't last long. I was trying different things. So no, for all of you listeners, I did have the privilege of watching Chris Wall's life, and who he is now is who he was then. He's consistent. He loves the Lord. He has a desire for other people to know the Lord. And he's also hilarious and full of laughter as well. So, and a really good guitar player. There's a lot of good things with Chris Wall. And I'm privileged to be here with my son, Will. Will's a stud. And so it's fun. Now, our life is, we've basically been in the business world. When I was 21, I moved to Russia, and I used business as a platform for influence. And then I've just been on this journey to learn how to do that. That's the process that I've been in, which is how do I let the world fund me to influence it? And so my business, without going through all of my resume, which would be kind of boring, but my businesses have been to use publishing and to use really relational intelligence to help take people on a journey to self-awareness so they can see the holes and really come to light with spiritual or self-awareness, or really become the person they've always wanted to be but have never known how to be. We have a number of companies, and then a couple of years ago, Will and I, Will came to me and said, hey, let's start a company. And I'll let him explain how we did that and even what that was about. But I've just been on a journey, Chris, of learning how to be intentional, learning how to step into my identity and my superpowers and my calling. and I let the world fund me on those things, and then I help people do that. So we have about 1,000, like 975 consultants around the world that we train to do what we do inside companies of all sizes. So that's a quick summary.
That's cool. And you're also a best-selling author. I mean, you've written some incredible books that our staff has used and Owasso Public Schools are using. Your five voices. I mean, I texted you a picture the other day. I have on a sign on our doors and all of our offices that, hey, we're in fifth gear. Don't interrupt me. 5 gears. And so, as listeners, I really would love for you to check out what Jeremie has written. You can
Yeah,
find those things.
and we have a new book coming out 1 month from today. So the communication code is our next one.
Awesome.
So, Will, would you tell us a little bit about this, what you and your dad have been creating?
So what we've created is 6 summers, and it's really based off of what he did with me, apprenticing me, and really flipping that switch from accidental to intentional to want the best for me and launch me well into life. And so he created this almost apprenticeship track for all of us kids, my older sister and younger sister, to really make the most out of the time we had left, and really understand, our personalities, our emotional intelligence, how we react, how we really operate, and be able to communicate at a deeper level and have fun while doing it. And so we saw a need a couple of years ago from a group of dads that were like, we are so hungry, we don't know what to do or how to do it. And so we created 6 summers, and that is a membership community for dads to really learn, grow, and overflow this knowledge and adventure to their families and put them back at the center of the household and really ultimately become friends with their kids after they leave the house. And so there's a bunch of different badges, experiences, conversations, and trips that we are involved in with these fathers, sons, fathers, and families, but truly the dad, to help them be more intentional, know what it's like to be on the other side of themselves, and launch their kids well.
Tell me about the 6 summers. That's like intentional, like during their teenage years. Is that correct? Tell us about how you got to 6.
Yes. Yes. So the 6 summers are those summers between the ages of 13 and 18. And so stepping into manhood or womanhood at 13, all the way up until you're leaving the house to go to college, do life, whatever that looks like for their family.
And it's based on Luke 2:52. Jesus grew in wisdom and knowledge, and he grew socially, mentally, physically, just spiritually, the whole bit. And so the deal is like there's lots of good programs in discipleship, but it's also, do you know how to change a tire? Do you know how to start a business? Do you know how to use tools? Do you know how to cook 10 meals before you leave? To fun things as well. So we're focused on adventure experiences and use experiences with your kids to help apprentice them and train them. And so we're really training dads on how to be more intentional through this process.
I love this, Jeremie, because, when I think about the American culture and we're entrepreneurial, that's the heart of America. We're going to figure something out. And so often I've watched, in my lifetime has been inside the church as an office in the church, but in that spiritual influence, I've felt the temptation personally as a pastor and seen successful businessmen that have been incredible at business, but overlooked their home, overlooked their children. I love what you're doing here, pushing fathers and mothers to be intentional influences in the home. Sometimes I think it's accidental. Tell us a little bit about some of those intentional influences. I know you said like using a hammer, budget, those kind of things. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so for me, it was a realization that I was being accidental to my family, almost like abdicating to Kelly, that she would take care of the kids and I would take care of money. And that's, I think, a traditional for a lot of men in particular. And I had this wake up of like, who do I want to be for my kids? And so I moved the dimmer switch on my back from accidental up to intentional. And I started to learn how to be intentional. And I put that next to this verse, Mark 4:19. But the cares of the world, the delight in riches, the desire for other things, enter in, choke the truth, and prove you unfruitful. That's the general construct of that, right? And I didn't want to be unfruitful. So I just went really hard into like, what do my kids need to learn? And then as they got older, I was like, okay, between 16 and 18, what do they need to learn? What's the IQ they need to learn? What's the emotional intelligence they need to learn? How do they hear from God? What are the things I want to pass on and leave with them? Almost as if it was my legacy. Like, you're leaving home forever. Here you go. Let's make sure you know how to have meals. Let's make sure you know how to budget. Let's make sure you know how to handle emergencies. And let's make sure you know how to start a business. So all our kids had to start a business at the age of 15. And inside 6 summers, we we push that to go, if your kids are 15, start a business, because they'll learn so much by doing it. And so what we're doing is we're leveraging and using the everyday parts of the world to help give dads opportunities to train their kids and or to connect with their kids. And so Will has done such an amazing job. He's running this full time, and we're building this membership, and we're basically, and it's $100 a year. It's nothing. We're like, let's eliminate costs just to be a member, and you get access to all of these tools and all of these badges and things to do with your kids. And then if you want to go on an adventure experience, that's above and beyond. But that's what we're doing at 6 summers.
I really love what you've done with this curriculum because I'm a parent. I have a toddler. She's 1. She's crazy and so much fun. But my husband and I are really trying to understand and pray through how are we going to raise her up to send her out. I think that's something that our culture can miss a lot of the time is that we're raising our kids to send them, not raising our kids to keep them. And so, I'd love to be in the same community someday. I live in the same town as my parents now, and free babysitting, awesome. Highly recommend. But they sent me and they prepared me as best they could to face the world. And so I love this idea of a checklist of things to help parents, especially dads, look through what have I taught them and what am I lacking in teaching my kids. Because we want to send them well. We want them to be able to thrive in the world outside of our home once they leave it.
So, Will, how did your dad shape you? Like, because really, what makes you good at this is you possess this influence. You have this life that's been influenced. How has your dad influenced you as you grew up?
I mean, I think it goes back to, me as a 10 to 12-year-old, almost all the way up to 16, not even realizing that he was influencing me. But then after I leave the house, looking back and being like, oh, I see this part of my dad in me. I see this part of my dad in me. And so I think the the biggest thing was watching him shift from that accidental to intentional, but also the way he understood me and who God created me to be rather than who he wanted me to be.
Mhm.
And that was a huge part is he let me know that he was so for me, had the amount of support and challenge and provided this almost just world for me to live in that opened up this whole new space of self-awareness, knowing myself, knowing him, and really just doing life together. And so we're very opposite, just personality wise. The biggest part was him recognizing that early and adjusting the way he communicated, the way he led, the way he experienced with each of us, not only me. And so I think that is the biggest part is his self-awareness influenced me the most because even now I'm last night I had an awesome conversation with dads talking about the exact same thing. I don't know how to connect with my kids. I don't understand them. And so I think the biggest influence was him understanding me and adjusting what he was doing to launch me well.
And what we did from that, you guys, is that we used our own content. So we created the Five Voices with Steve Cockrum, he and I, but we used this language of understanding personality to go, well, Will's a guardian. oh my gosh, and Kelly's a guardian, my wife, and I'm a connector. And we took, what was from Myers-Briggs and we simplified it so that kids can understand it. And that's part of this as well. You learn this inside 6 summers. So imagine if you learn who your wife is, you know it intuitively, but now you put language to it. And now the two of you work really hard to know each one of your kids. So I have a creative daughter in Tulsa, I have a guardian son, and our youngest is a nurturer. Well, all that's done. It's like you know how plants give you the card, and plants say, "Here's how much water they need. Here's how much air, sunlight they
Sunlight.
need." That's all it is. Is we've figured out what our kids, how much water they need. How do they want to be talked to? How do they respond under pressure? How do they deal with stress? Once we knew that, we adapted to them, not forcing them to adapt to us.
You know what
And
yeah,
that was a
I love this, Jeremy,
key
because when you think about a parent, it is our job to know our kids and then and understand, and what I would say as a follower of Christ, to understand how God made them and how God has called them into the world. And so often as parents, we want them to be just like us. So Jeremy, when you noticed that Will was different than you, how did you just foster that? How did you uh, appreciate that rather than resent that?
So we work under the premise of know yourself to lead yourself, and under high support, high challenge. It's the support challenge matrix. Our kids need support. They also need challenge. If you bring all support with no challenge, then you create a protecting helicopter parent culture. If you do all challenge with no support, you produce a dominating culture. So I was learning how to calibrate at the same time. But what does Will need from me? Man, he's so hard headed. He's so strong. I mean, this was like a 10-year-old boy because he's a guardian and he's very logical. And so I had to learn how do I help him? How do I bring support to that versus I have to I have to break his will. And that's what a lot of dads are like. You got to break his will so they'll listen to you. And I'm like, that's how they resent you. So how do I then bring enough support to him? And what does support look like? And then what does challenge look like? And I realized the aha was Will's harder on himself than I am on him. So I shouldn't double up on dominating. That I need to be careful with my challenge because he challenges himself. So let me encourage him not to dominate himself. And I just learned how to motivate him and how to connect with him. And I started to relax and stop trying to win. uh, I basically started to learn how to partner with him. But every child's different. And that's the thing. If you can figure it out and solve, it's almost like a code. You figure out that code per child, all of a sudden you start connecting and then you practice that and then you stay consistent. I think that's the other thing. I finally stayed consistent with Will. So he knew what to expect from me. So is that fair, Will?
Yeah, that was a
Oh yeah,
great answer.
spot on.
Oh, I guess you were asking Will, not me, but that was really clear. So great job. I just wanted to ask, how did you, as a father, realize that you needed to apply what you had been doing in your career with leadership and inspiring and relationships in your home? You talked about the switch flip. So how did you apply that specifically?
You see things work. What we do at Giant, we created visual tools. Jesus used parables. We created tools to match the 21st century learning style of adults because most adults are cynical know-it-alls and they don't read anymore. So we're like, well, it works it should work at home, but our kids were just coming to the age where we could use it versus us feeling like we're forcing it on them. So we just would try stuff, and a lot of times we wouldn't even show them. We just do stuff and then see if it worked. We're like, hey, that worked, and then we would talk about it. But to be honest, Emily, the biggest thing was Kelly and I, my wife and I, getting on the same page.
Hmm.
And that took years of her and I using the same common language. And when you both use the same common language and when you're both humble enough to learn your children and start learning what support looks like and challenge looks like. So Kelly and Will, they're the same Will's a guardian pioneer. Kelly's a guardian nurturer. That guardian first voice, the first personality, they're really, really tight and they work really, really well together. Will and I are nemesis voices. But my wife, her nemesis voice is the creative, which is my oldest daughter. And they would have such a hard time connecting. And I was always the connector. I was always the one to make sure. So what we did was we just kept practicing.
Hmm.
But our intent was we were fighting for the highest possible good of our kids. And then once you start having a tool, so we'd start with the sport challenge matrix, like that works. Know yourself, lead yourself. And we started adding these tools. Well, now we've got that in 6 summers. We're training dads on these tools and parents. And if they'll use the tools, it does the heavy lifting of parenting. It's objective, not subjective. And so that's what we finally packaged. And Will was like, hey, Dad, let's package this and give this to dads. So this was all Will doing that. He's been pulling for me and packaging what I did with him.
So Will, tell me how you got this idea to go, hey, this is valuable that the world needs to know this.
Yeah, because I'm impressed. You don't have kids yet, and you're ready to train dads because of how well your dad dadded you. So, yeah, how did you come up with that?
That's a good term, dadded.
I love making
Hey,
up words.
that's a good term.
I mean, I think 6 summers has definitely formed into what it is today. We started doing trips, and so we had a group of dads come to us and want to go on an adventure and package in what we did together. And so it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, but I always had the desire to own a retreat center where people could come and learn through experiences. And that's how I learned. That's how he connected with me, as we would go and do something. And whether it was a hike, whether it was, building an obstacle course in the backyard or playing in the creek, it was just actively doing an experience and learning from it. And so that's really where 6 summers came from, is like, let's go on adventures, get dads out of their comfort zone in the wilderness, in these unknown places, and go and almost disconnect them from the sports, work, and school and all of this crazy chaos, and truly grow. And so that's what's always worked. I mean, I think just statistically getting people out, uh, away from what's normal and what's comfortable, that's where growth happens. And my heart behind it was, I would not be where I am today if my dad didn't make that switch. We probably wouldn't be as close. And I think that I get to be a really in a unique spot because I'm not a dad, but I'm a son, and I get to be the middleman between those fathers and sons, fathers and kids, and create these incredible memories that'll last a lifetime, and truly raise up the next generation for success and uh, just growth and self awareness and all of these things that we are trying to instill through 6 summers, but also they're going to have those amazing memories that they'll always remember and truly become friends with their dads.
I love
Which
that.
and a lot of dads live in regret of what they haven't done, and then they see other people and like, oh, I can't be as good as them. I wish. And we're like, you know what? It's never too late, but it's also like start now. Don't miss it. Don't miss those 6 summers wherever you're at, even if you have 2 summers left. So what we've done is we've then packaged all these tools. So we have base camp for dads, and they go through this process of self-awareness and the journey of being intentional. And then we go into the badges, the experiences that they can do with their kids, whether it be learn how to cook a steak together, do a concert swap, build a high adventure like obstacle course, or we then have the last, which is trips. Go on a trip, and we have people who we have a whole bunch of ambassadors that we go on trips with groups of dads, or we help you plan a trip, or you can go on one of ours. Will's, you've got Panama, you've got a sail fishing trip. We've been to Hawaii with Bethany Hamilton and her husband surfing, where the Soul Surfer was. We've been in Alaska. We've been in Canada. We've just done a lot of fun trips, and so that's how we kind of weave all those in to create these adventure experiences and help dads leverage them. So that's
That's
6 summers.
So how can listeners find 6 summers?
6summers.com, spelled out SIX summers.com, and that'll have all of the information. you can sign up for a free account and learn more.
All right, well, we're going to put that in the show notes and definitely want sixsummers.com. And I want our listeners to check that out. You know, guys, I just am so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for your time today. And what I love about what you're doing is you're bringing this intentionality to discipleship in the home. And this is something that and just for our listeners, I just love Jeremie. I respect his walk with the Lord. You know, Will, I've watched you I've known about you, though, you know, Jeremie and I have been in different places. We've stayed connected since 1992. Followed parallel paths of ministry and business, and for him and ministry for both of us. And I just am grateful to see how the young man you've become. And Jeremie, I'll tell you, I've watched your children, and it's worked, my brother. And you've raised some incredible kids that are making incredible contributions. And it's such an honor to have you both today. Any last word for our listeners today from each of you?
Yeah, I think speaking to dads, it's like it's not too late to start being intentional with your kids, and the work you put in now, the things that you sow now with your family, you'll reap the rewards in the end. And I think that's what we're experiencing right now.
Awesome. Coop.
For mine, it's all of that. It's this idea of learning to liberate and be liberated brings support and challenge to yourself. If you're a dad listening to this, or a spouse, you're getting past dominating yourself. Don't partner with the enemy to sabotage yourself, but to call yourself up into who you could be. And that's the beauty of this whole thing. We're just bringing a lot of hope by giving people practical tools. But my last word, it's kind of funny. I'm wearing my Oklahoma football shirt, and Chris, knowing that I grew up an Oklahoma State fan, and I'm about to get on the team with the team to fly down to Texas, and actually now I get this to serve. One of the roles that I play is serving the OU football team and OU athletics as a whole. It's just really funny how
That you are a lifelong cowboy, which is funny. And so now both of you and I are typical OU fans. We didn't go there. Unlike Will, but because you were an OU athlete, which is super cool. I followed your journey, and but you know, I'm thankful for both of you. And you know, it's fun to have Jeremie, you and your son on today, and it's fun to be here with Emily. I love her. You know, my son writes an original song for every podcast, and I'm excited about the song that he's going to write for this one. It's almost like I need to throw out an idea of a reverse Cats in the Cradle, something. Will, do you even know that song, Cats in the Cradle? Will, are you too young to know
Yeah.
that song? Do you know
I know
that?
it.
Okay, Emily knows.
Only because of you.
Right. So I busted out that song. But Emily, you want to close us out? Anything about Eric?
No, we're grateful for his music, and so stay tuned for the end of this episode to hear his song. Jeremie and Will, we're so grateful that you were on our show today. Thanks so much.
My spirit's heavy, and my soul is weak. And Lord, I can't carry on, no, unless you carry me. And Lord, I don't understand like you would, how you will work this for my good. But I know you will win tomorrow, so I will go, and I won't fear. And even though am in the shadow, I will trust that you are with me here. So I look up and see the light ahead, and the plans you have for me, oh, and the paths I tread. 'Cause if you're for me, oh, then what can stand against the glories that you have planned? 'Cause I know you are in tomorrow, so I will go and I won't fear, no. And even though I am in the shadow, oh, I will trust that you are with me here. 'Cause if you are for me, what more could I need? And if you are with me, I have everything. Oh, 'cause if you are for me, what more could I need? And if you are with me, I have everything. So I know you are in tomorrow, so I will go and I won't fear. And even though I am in the shadow, I will trust that you are with me here.
Thank you for joining us today. Remember, following Jesus does not keep us from tough times, but He is faithful to walk with us through them all. You can trust God even when it's hard to see His hand or hear His voice. As always, our prayer is Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may overflow with hope. Help us out by subscribing to our podcast and sharing it with others. To be a monthly supporter, click on the link in the show notes or go to our website at aliveforthfollowing.org. See you next time on Time with Giants.